Good morning and welcome to today's EnRoute webinar. My name is Stuart. I'll be facilitating today, and our presenter will be Aaron Clapp. Aaron is Director of Training here at SAI, knows everything there is to know about EnRoute. And today he's going to be talking about drawing in EnRoute. So he's going to be working through how to create this part that you see on your screen here. And then after that presentation, we'll open it up for some questions. So if you do have any you can just type them into the chat window in the bottom there. Or if you think of any other questions, whether related to drawing or just other questions you have about EnRoute, feel free to go ahead and ask those, and we'll answer as many as we can. We will be recording the webinar as usual, so we will post it to our YouTube channel later today, and we'll send everyone a link to the recording. So if you want to review it later, maybe follow along with him or share it with someone else, we'll send you the link so you can do so. And with that, we will turn it over to Aaron.
All right, sounds good. So I figured today would be a great day to get into a little bit of the drawing of EnRoute here. And so, and just kind of show some tips and tricks as we go along. And I figured we'd take a small part that's relatively simple, but it has some elements in it that, maybe would be a little bit difficult to do. Or may not be super obvious. And so what I thought we would do is we would work through putting together this file, drawing this by hand using nothing but the EnRoute tools. No tracing or anything like that, just hand drawing everything. And so as we go along, there'll be some things that hopefully you'll kind of gather, and there's different ways to do different things, but hopefully we'll learn something through that process. So this, I will admit, this file is kind of blurry for you guys. It's blurry for me too, but I have a little bit better version off screen. It's for some reason when I converted it to a bitmap, it kind of just lost all of its integrity. But that's okay. I know what these numbers are for the most part, and we should be able to handle it. Okay, so one of the things we'll get started with is we're going to draw this part. So we've got, and this would be, I would imagine, a fairly typical type of drawing that you would get from, say, a customer that needs parts or something like that. So it's going to be important to kind of set up or have these dimensions available to you. If you don't have these dimensions with the drawing, it does make things significantly more difficult, especially if you're trying to go for accuracy and things like that. So if you can get a file like this from a customer, this is really ideal because it makes our life a lot easier. So let's just kind of get started and see where we go with this. So first of all, we want to get the outside shape, and then we need a curve here and things like that. So it looks like we've got a fairly simple shape. Now, there's a tool that I like to use to get this shape. And there's a couple different ways. And honestly, you'll find that most of the way that we go through this, there's probably going to be 2 or 3 different ways that you could do each one of these steps and get to the same result. This is just going to be one way, and I'll probably try and illustrate a few different ways just so you can kind of see how that goes. But first, I like to just get something on screen. So it doesn't matter how big it is. I just get a rectangle on screen, and then I like to hit my F2 button and bring up my Precision Input Center. I like to have this kind of handy so I can make adjustments and changes to my lines. So if we look at our thing here, it says we are 3 in the Y. So we'll just put that in there. And then we are up here at the top, it shows that we are 5 inches wide in the X. We'll go 5 here. We'll just hit OK. So all right, so now we got our general shape. Now, how do we want to create this little cutout? Well, that's what we're going to do next, because that's kind of, I think, the easiest or the least difficult thing to do. So we're going to take a look at our measurements here and just see what we got. So it doesn't really give us a measurement from here down to the bottom, but it does give us a measurement from here to here. So that's 1.2 inches. So we can just take that over or out of the overall drawing size and that'll give us our height there. So let's start with, again, I like to just throw a drawing on screen. So I just got a shape, and then I'll come into my Precision Input Center and change it. So according to this, it's 1.375. I know that looks a little blurry, but that's 1.375. We'll put that in the Y, and then in X, we're going to go 1.8. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just place this inside my area here, and then I have several different ways that I can get that shape out of there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my snaps here. So I'm going to use snap to endpoint. Again, snaps are really useful when you're doing any kind of drawing. They help a ton in terms of accuracy. I'm going to grab my snap to endpoint. I'm going to click on my move command. I'm going to click on this corner here, and then I'm going to snap it to the corner there. There we go. So now here is where we've got several different ways that we can approach getting this out of here. So we can do a weld subtract. So I can select this object, and I could do one of several options like weld subtract if I want to. Oops. I think I need to select the larger piece first. Then do a weld subtract. I can do that if I want to, like that, and that'll give me that shape. Another way that I like to do this as well, and this is kind of a little more of a fun tool, I think, because it kind of gives me a little more flexibility. I like to use the jigsaw weld. If I click on the jigsaw weld, this will allow me to highlight several different shapes that I have that are intersecting with each other. And so now I can simply left click and drag, and now I can get that piece out. And it still maintains my original drawing in its original shape. The cool thing here is that I can do this with just about anything. So if we do a circle like this, go back to our jigsaw weld, I can now get all kinds of different shapes out of this. I can pull this out. I can pull this out. So I can grab any one of these things. So that's kind of one of the things I really like about the drawing in terms of the jigsaw weld tool, is there's a lot of flexibility there in terms of what I can do and how easy it is to create grab those little nuggets out of a drawing. So I think I'm good there. So now I've got the part that I want. And this is probably something easy that most of you know already, but you can use the radius tool right here. And this is or the fillet tool. So I'm going to use my fillet corners. I'm just going to say single fillet, and then I'm going to take my drawing here. I'm going to take the radius here. So our radius it's a little blurry, but it's 0.270. So the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to place a point on either side. So a little green circle there, a green circle here. And I usually go way bigger than what I need, just so that I don't have to adjust it. But if you do need to adjust it, you can move these back and forth. So if you end up having a radius that's larger than these 2 points, you probably have to drag them out like this in order to get them to the radius to fit right. So I've got my radius of 0.27 already set. So technically, I mean, I don't have to have these out here. They can be all the way up here. Anyway, this just defines the boundary in which the radius, or it's going to look for a corner inside of this area for me to do. So radius 0.27, hit apply, just like that. Now we've got our radius. So real easily, we've got the base shape going on here. And that's pretty easy and pretty simple. So nothing like rocket science there, but that's a good quick way to get there. So now let's work on the middle here. Now, again, there's several different ways that you can do this. I am going to prefer to use the option to create a rectangle and then round the edges off later. And there's going to be a reason why. But you can also create the same rectangle. So if I click on my draw rectangle, I can go ahead and use the fillet corners. And our corners here, our radiuses are 0.270 as well. So I can go 0.270. And I could create a rectangle with the radiuses already placed on. Now, the reason why I'm not going to do that is because I need the alignment to be set straight. So we need to find out where to put this, and I'm going to use the sharp corners of my rectangle in order to get the positioning right. So I'm going to create a rectangle on screen again, like I usually do, and this is going to be 1.5 inches in height, and let's see here. Where's our width? 0.675, I believe is what that is. A little blurry, but that's 0.675. Okay. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this top left-hand corner to be the area where I pinpoint where that's actually going to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at several dimensions right here. So here we have 0.31 or 3.175. That's the distance of this corner, the corner of this object or the side of this object from this edge over here. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up that. Then I'm also going to line up this right here. So this distance is, again, 0.645. From what we got here. So let's, and again, these measurements are super crucial that I get them. If you were to, I download this image off the internet, so our numbers, we can kind of fudge them a little bit if we need to, but you would get a much, if you had this from an email from a customer, you'd probably get a much clearer image. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say, let's draw two lines. So here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to draw two lines. Whoops. There we go. So I'm going to hold down Shift to get a perfectly straight line. And then I'm also going to draw a line vertically. So I got two different lines here. And I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to change the length of this one to 3.175 and hit OK. Then I'm going to take this line and I'm going to change it to 0.645. Click OK. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I need to get this line, I needed to get it positioned exactly in this zone where it needs to be. It's going to be somewhere in here. I don't know exactly where, but I'm going to use this line to get this line into position. So I'm going to just say move, endpoint, snap it to the endpoint. I'm going to close, grab this line, move. I'm going to grab this end. I'm going to snap it to this line right here. Because that's an endpoint of this line, I can snap to it. And now we are this little corner right here is perfectly. It's going to be perfectly in the center here. So again, there's multiple ways that we can do this. I could use relative to position if I want to as well. So this is one way. The other way that I could do this is I could grab this and I can actually use my move relative commands and I could use a move relative position. So I could say I want this move, relative to this corner. I want it moved down 0.375 inches, or sorry, 0.645 inches and 1.3 or 3.175 inches over. So there's several different ways that you can do this. And depending on what kind of information you have, that could be helpful. So in this case, I can grab this and just drag it into position like this if I want to. That's one way. The other way is I can simply come over here. I can move these out of the way, get rid of those. I can take this. I can simply move this into position like that. I can grab this. And now I can say move relative. So what I'm going to do is I can grab the corner, and now that's locked in my coordinates here. And so now I can say from here, in my X, I need to move 3.175 inches. And then I need to go negative on my Y, 0.645. Oops, I got to go negative there. Forgot to put the negative in. just like that. And so if we were to, let's group this together, if we were to put this back into position, you can see that we're exactly in the same spot. So two different ways to do the same thing, quick and easy to do that as well. So we've got this in position. Now we can do the same thing that we did before. We can fillet these corners in, put our radius. I'm going to say all outside corners. I'm going to click on my object there, hit apply, and we're ready. So now we've got that into position. Again, we can do the same thing with our radius here on this end. So now as we go to draw this, what we've got is, if we look at our drawing, we've got a hole that's going to be going down, according to our drawing, 0.25 inches in depth. And then the rest of it is, the center is going to go down the full 0.5 inches. So I'm going to create two circles. And our radiuses on this one are going to be 0.125. And based on this drawing here, it's going to be, this is the diameter that they have listed here. So diameter 0.25 is the center one, so 0.125. And then the outside hole is 375. That's going to be 0.1875. We got two holes. So again, we can do the same thing if we want to with the lines that we did before, but it's my preference to do the other. But briefly, what you do is you could grab these two lines. Like I said before, you can grab these two lines, create them at the distance that you want, snap them into position, and then you can put the center of the circle at that point. Now, if we look at this, it says right here, both lines are 0.563 inches away from the edge. And so I'm going to forego this method, and I'm going to go ahead and just use the snaps method, because I find it a little bit easier. So I'm going to grab my circle. I'm going to go center of an arc. I'm going to hit my move command. I'm going to click on the edge of the circle, because that's how we get the center there. So click on the edge, and I'm going to snap it right to the corner here. And I'm going to go ahead and do that with this one while I'm at it. Select this one, click it again to have it to center. And then I'm just going to group these. Probably should have done that before, but I'm just going to group them together now. And now I'm going to use my move relative again. So what I'm going to do is, they both have the same center point. So I'm going to touch the edge of the circle, get that center point locked in. Okay, so on my X, let's see here. Let's look at our drawing. 563. So I'm going to say positive 0.563 and then negative 0.563 on the Y, because we're actually subtracting it from that. Hit apply, and now that's exactly in here, right where we want it to be. Now, obviously, our proportions I don't think are quite right. Let's see here. Anyway, the radius doesn't matter on this necessarily, but what does matter is that we get the center of this object right in, not necessarily in the middle. This is slightly off center. And if we measure this from the edge, so if I measure the center of the circle, let's grab this and let's ungroup it. So make sure we're we've got, here we go. We got a 0.563. And if we were to do this from the center here to here, 563. Now, if we go from the center here to here, we're a little bit taller. So we're slightly off center, but that's how the drawing is supposed to be. So we're good there. We can do the same thing with these guys down here. Or another way that you can do this is, and this is something that It's not necessarily the most efficient, but it's useful as well. Again, we can use our lines to get us drawn. I'm using my shift key to make sure that it's perfectly flat. And we'll grab our precision input center by using the F2 key. I can also use, or I can also pull that up if you don't have an F2 key or don't have any function keys on your laptop or keyboard. You can also go to this guy right here, this little button up here. This button will open it, and then I believe you can also get it from the view menu. Active Precision Input Center. All right, so we're going to do, okay, so we're going to take this line, we're going to say, where's this line? So we're at 2.250. Okay, and then this line is going to be, we are, I believe that's 0.075 or 0.6, no, 0.675, that's what that is, 0.675. Okay, and we have a 1/4 inch. 1.125 1/4 inch hole here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place that right at the center here. So there I've got my first hole that is 0.675 inches away from the edge and 2 1/4 away from the edge over here. So now what I can do is I can get rid of these lines. And if in this case they didn't really give us a drawing measurement from here to the edge, it just says that it's 1.5 inches away from the previous hole. So what I'm just going to do is just draw another line. Just like that. I don't even have to move it. And then we'll just put in 1.5 inches. Okay, it expanded it the wrong way, so we'll just move it into position. And now we can grab this. I'm going to hold down Control and drag to make a copy. And I'm going to move this object into position just like that. And now I've got my basic drawing set. Now I can toolpath this. So I just grabbed another line, made it 1.5 inches, snapped it to the center, and then made a copy of my hole, and then dragged it down to the end, snapped it into position, and put it in like that. So this is one way to draw. Now there are like I said, many multiple ways of doing this. You'll find that you can do it this way, you can do it another way. There's all kinds of different ways to do it. For example, using snaps is a really good way to kind of determine some things. For example, if you need to draw a line from the edge of this, let's say that this line here or this part is supposed to line up with the middle of this guy over here. Well, if you were doing that, you could just simply draw a line, use the snap to a midpoint like this, and hold down Shift, and now you have a line that goes all the way down the center. And then all you'd have to do is use your move commands to move the center of this right to whatever position you need it to be. So we could say move here. I need to back this off just a little bit because the lines are getting confused. There we go. So I can say move this, and we can snap it to a nearby contour, just like that. So we can move things in that method, using your finding different angles and things like that. So using your snaps is really good. Using your move command is going to be really helpful for drawing stuff as well. So when you use move command, know that there's several different types of moves that you can make. So you can move based on an absolute coordinate position. You can also move relative, and then you can move a corner. So if I have an object like this and I hit move, I've got these 9 boxes, and I can dictate where each box is in relationship to everything else. So I can say I want to move this box. If I'm choosing this, if I'm using move corner, I can say, let's grab this here again. Didn't mean to deselect it. Down here, I can choose which box that I want to move it from. So in this case, I can choose that one, and then I can move it to a specific location. So another really interesting thing that you can do is you can also do, if I take, let's just say we'll take this, I go to move, I can, if I go into move absolute, I can select a corner like this corner here, lock in the coordinates, and then I can do addition and subtraction in here as well. So let's say I want to move it down, down in the Y by 3 inches. So I can take 13.3793 minus 3.5 inches. Let's say we want that. We can do simple math, hit tab, it'll do the math for me, and then I can hit apply, and it'll move it that way as well. So I can do addition, subtraction. I think you could do multiplication inside of those little boxes. You can also use different options like arrow up and arrow down, so you can shift things over this way and left. I believe that's another really good way, especially if you need to bump it over. Here's something that's worth noting. If you go into your preferences, and you can set your bump increment. So if you need to bump it over a specific amount and you want to change your bump increments, you can change that. So I could change this to 1/2 inch, and it'll change every time I bump it over. It'll bump over 1/2 inch at a time. So if you're doing something that needs spacing every other 1/2 inch, using the bump increment is a good way to bump those things over if you're, say, making lines that need to be set in that particular way. You can bump them over 1/2 inch at a time if you want to. So using your bump increment and kind of setting that up can be really helpful depending on the job that you're doing. Another some interesting tool tips to use in terms of arcs is creating arcs with radiuses and angles and things like that. So you can use these options in here where you set a radius, you can set a start angle and set your sweep angle. You can create a very specific radius that way as well. You can also create freehand drawings. If we go to our poly arc drawing tool and I click on create an arc, I can set my specific point. So I'm going to go ahead and just snap to a point here somewhere on screen. And now I get all these different options as well. So I can set a direction. I can set my arc center. I can set my arc radius. I can also set a sweep angle. So I can do all kinds of things in ways of creating different types of arcs and different things right in here. So if you're doing this by hand and things like that, that's really good. Another thing to consider also is symmetrics. If you have a drawing that's symmetrical on both sides, you only have to draw half of the file, and then you can mirror your job if you want to using the mirror commands tools. So if we go in here and grab our mirror tool, I can mirror flip horizontal or vertically, or I can mirror it based on a line. So I can grab something great, generate half of it, and then flip it to save myself some time and mirror it across and make a copy of it so I do double. So that's another really good tool to know that's available. But I would say finding out if at anything, when you're drawing, when you have these lines like this, you don't have to even know the best, fastest, most efficient way to do it. You can get down and dirty and just simply start drawing lines into position and then use your snap tools to push stuff into position. So like I said, a lot of times you've probably maybe heard me say this, and maybe some other people in tech support say this, but EnRoute has like 3 to 4 different ways of doing the same thing. And we showed a couple different ways that you can do some drawings here. And hopefully that helps a little bit. I know it's not like rocket science or anything, but if you're new to EnRoute and you're just starting out with drawing, or if drawing is maybe something you just don't do that often in EnRoute, and import DXF files more often, sometimes knowing this can help. I'll also say another thing is when you're drawing stuff by freehand, it's always good to know that you can use your snap tools in conjunction with the other tools like extend trim lines, for example. So if I need to draw something up and I need to extend a line so that they intersect, I can use my snaps in conjunction with the extend contours. So if I need to extend a contour, say for example, let's grab a good one here. If you come up to a drawing, you're like, okay, I just need to snap this to the edge. You know, I can use my extend tool with the snap to a nearby contour enabled. And now when I move it over here, I can get a snap right to it. So now I know that that's going to be 100% touching that line. I don't have to worry about that, things like that. To use the bump item, I just use the up, down, left, and right arrows on your keyboard. So if you've got those, it's just your up arrow, down arrow, and whatnot. Another little tip I'll kind of just throw in here, and I'm kind of just throwing some stuff in just because they kind of come to mind. But if you really want to use like the absolute coordinate system, take advantage of the plate and the way that it's set up. So for example, if I want everything to be in relationship to each other, and I don't want to necessarily design in free space, which can make it a little more difficult. It can make drawing difficult, designing out in free space where your numbers are a little bit more disjointed, per se. What I can do is I can just say, well, let's grab this, delete this here, and I can grab my drawing and just hit. Now, if you have a keyboard, a keypad, you have to have the number pad for this. But if I hit Control-1, I can snap this right to the corner. And so this will put me right at 0, 0. And then I can design and move and change everything with in regards to an absolute coordinate mode. So I know that this coordinate over here in the top right-hand corner is 3 and 5 because that's the dimensions of our drawing. If we pull this over here, so I know that if our dimensions for our drawing are 3 by 5, because that's what it shows here, 3 by 5, then I know where every coordinate is in between here and there, and I can just start placing things at different positions if I know the absolute coordinates. So if I know that this has to be 1.5 inches up from the bottom and 2.5 inches over from the side, I can just put X 2.5, 1.5 Y, and then boom, that'll put it right in the position. So if you can design in this way, that also helps too. And again, you can hit Control-4, 7, 8, 9, 6, 3, 2, and 5. So you can kind of move these around when you're drawing and whatnot. And that's all based on the number pad. So just be aware of that. You have to have a number pad for that to work, for those particular commands to work. So I know this is a simple drawing, but hopefully this helped kind of get some ideas. If you've never used drawing EnRoute before, or it's something that you're not super familiar with, feel free to email me any questions or anything like that. But do you have any questions now about this here today?
We do have a couple questions that came up during the meeting. A couple people ask, what key do you use to bump an item? And then Zach
That
said
would
the
be
arrow keys.
Yep, arrow keys.
So just want to make sure that everyone saw the answer to the question. And then Yolanda asked, are the design able to be cut in vinyl after?
Yeah, you can. You definitely can. So if this was something that you wanted to cut out, you can go to File and Export, and then we can export this in a number of different formats. So if you were sending this to Flexi, for example, you could send it out as an AI file, a DXF. None of these other really make sense for that, but probably a DXF or AI would probably be the two ones if you're going to send it to Flexi or some other design application like Adobe or some other cutting program. You'd probably want to either go DXF or AI. Most likely DXF though.
Okay, thank you. And then Maria had a question, said, I have a question about how I can set depth to import drawing from AutoCAD.
So anytime you import anything from AutoCAD, it should maintain layers and depth of lines if everything is designed in a plane with depth. So if you import, so let's just say let's remove this bitmap just for a second, and let's just grab this, and we'll just go to our side view, and let's move this in the, we'll do this. We'll just do it in the side view because it's easier. Let's just drag this down. It will let me. No, maybe not. Let's try. There we go. Okay, so we've got a line that's at negative 0.25 from the top of the plate. I can export this. We'll just do a regular DXF. We'll call this test. Entire file, contours only. That is fine. Okay. And if we go to a new file and then import that DXF file, when we go to our side view, it's still in its depth. So it's right where it left off. So if you design it like around 0, 0, and then you put those lines at different depths, and that you save it, in AutoCAD, you should be able to import those multiple depths and things like that into it. You can also, it also supports layered DXF files. So if you put things into layers, those objects will show up in layers in EnRoute as well. And they'll just be up here. You'll see the layers pop up.
Okay. Thank you. John asked, do you have practice modules to learn your system?
You know what? That's a good question. We don't have specific practice modules or training modules, but we offer two things. If you go to the help menu and go to the EnRoute manual, this will bring up a full feature EnRoute manual that goes over everything. So for example, if you want to learn how to use the 3D option sweep to rails, click on that. It'll tell you kind of how to use it, what options are available here, and then here's some other things that go along with it. So decent thing here. So you can kind of learn some of the tools from the manual and how to use them. This is a pretty resource intensive thing. I could understand if you didn't necessarily want to read this though. It can be kind of a difficult thing to read, you know, how to use a tool. So our other resource that would be available would be Addendo. Addendo is a website that we're involved with, where you can purchase training on there. And so if you want to learn how to do anything you want, you can go to Addendo. We have all kinds of different advisors, some from the sign industry. So we've got quite a few guys that have their own shops that are on there, and you can sign up with some training for them. I'm on there as well. Jesse is on there, Jesse Ricky, EnRoute product director is on there as well. So we've got different people on there that have different levels of support for EnRoute on Addendo as well. So if that's something you're looking into, I would check out Addendo, sign up for an account there for free, and then just check out what options. Like I said, we've got all kinds of different advisors on there, have different levels of skill. Some own shops, some don't. Some have used EnRoute for years, things like that. So it's a good resource there. And then the third option would be, we do have a lot of YouTube content. So if you're looking for any content, you can go to our YouTube channel, and that will actually get you to a bunch of stuff right off the bat. You can go look at some of our previous webinars. We offer all kinds of things like that. And then the last thing that I'll say about training, I keep adding new things. is that EnRoute 6 has a new feature in it that allows you to right-click on any one of these tools, and it'll bring up a little movie on how to use the snaps tool. Or if I right-click on the Draw Polyarc tool, it gives me like a 2-3 minute video on how to use the polyline tool. So there's little snapshots of little videos all over EnRoute where you can just right-click on it and it'll bring up a little video that kind of shows you how to use it. In case you need a refresher or your first time using it and you're just not quite familiar with the tools, that's a really great way to refresh yourself on that as well. Okay, yep, you got the spelling on the website there, great.
Perfect. And then we had a couple other questions. Paul asked, is there a clean-up drawing type of option to remove overlapping line remnants?
You know what, that's a really good question too. So there's a couple different things you can do there. If you want to okay, so let's just say this. So I don't have a really good DXF to kind of show on this. You don't actually know what we do. Hold on. Let me open up here we go. So here is a sign, and we are going to just remove the toolpath. So this particular drawing came into me, and it was just someone was having some toolpathing issues with it. No big deal. But one of the things that you'll notice is if we go to our point edit tools, and I click on some of these letters are kind of saturated with points. That one's not so bad. That one's not bad. But anything with a curve on it, these curves and these arcs are kind of oversaturated with points. There's really not, it's not necessary to have that many points. So I can grab this whole thing. In fact, I'll just grab the whole file. And I'm going to go to Draw, Cleanup. And I'm going to set my tolerance super low, 0.001. This basically ensures me that I'm never going to lose my drawing. And in terms of, EnRoute's not going to change my drawing more than 0.001 in tolerance. So basically, if it removes a point, it's only removing points that are not going to change the geometry in any shape or any noticeable way. So if I hit OK, you can see here it went from 765 to 759. So not a whole lot, but I can keep doing this a couple different times. Here's a little shortcut for it. So in this case, it didn't allow us to do a bunch, but because I think I already cleaned this up from before and saved it. So unfortunately, I didn't go back to the original file. But this one, I want to say was in like it was a lot worse than this when I first started it, but it was in the thousands of points. And then we reduced it way, way down. Like there was a lot of points. So that's a way to reduce points. And sometimes it can also clean up little overlapping spots if it falls within that tolerance range. A good way to find out if you have overlapping lines is to use this option right up here in the Snaps toolbar, Show Intersecting Contours. So let's just take the 3, hit Control, and then paste. So technically, I have 2 3s on top of each other right here. Okay? If I select this, I should only have to select it, turn off all my other snaps, and I turn this on, you can see here where all the overlapping lines are. And so in this particular file, I know that this 3 is a problem. So if I hit delete, now I don't have any more overlapping lines. Somewhere down here, I've got overlapping lines. Delete, now we're good to go. So now it looks like every one of these little middle pieces actually has 2 lines on it. And so this is a really easy way for me to just double check what's going on here. Okay, so now I can confidently say that there are now no overlapping lines in this file, and I can turn that off and go about my business. So that's a good way to see those.
Perfect. And then Brian asked, is scan or trace an option?
It is an option. Yep. So if you run into a circumstance where you need to use or scan or trace an object, you can do that. You would use this option under Draw, Vectorize Bitmap. So this is the option that allows you to convert bitmaps into vector lines. And depending on the quality of the bitmap will kind of depend. Preferably, EnRoute's not a graphics design program, so it doesn't do colors and fills and stuff like that. So it's best to have black and white images, but as long as you stay away from like grayscale, you're fine. It can do color images as well. It's just going to have a hard time with images that have like really light colors, like a light pink or a light gray or something like that. It really highly depends on the contrast between the white and the black. So typically we say if it's something that has like grayscale, just take it into like any program. You can probably use Paint 3D that's built into Windows, and you can probably flip it to grayscale, or not grayscale, but black and white, and that'll probably help. But yeah, you can use Vectorize Bitmap, and it does a really good job of vectorizing all your lines. And then once you vectorize it, if you need to make any changes, you can use your point editing tools to change anything in your drawings and stuff like that.
Okay, I think we've got two more questions. John just had a follow-up when we were asking about training. You wanted to know what section would you read that pertains to plasma cutting?
So if you're doing anything with plasma cutting, typically you're going to read up on the sections for your kerf compensation. So kerf compensation is the toolpath that's all about plasma and water jets and stuff like that. So the kerf compensation section would be the area that you'd use for the plasma sections.
Okay, perfect. And then we had one more question. Maria asked, how can I assign thickness to an object?
Okay, so there is so EnRoute is a little bit different than like your traditional like AutoCAD type drawing. Everything is based off of 2D. So kind of what you see is what you get. So when I draw this rectangle, it's a 2D rectangle. It's not anything 3D, and you really don't. It's not designed to be 3D necessarily in that particular aspect. Now you can create 3D reliefs and things like that. That's kind of a different world to get into. But if you're just drawing, for the most part, everything is in 2D from a top-down view for the most part. It's not really necessary to have. So, for example, if I wanted to cut out like a box, I really don't need. I don't need the 3D part of it and able to cut out that box. I can just use a 2D object with tool pathing, and I can kind of create that. So, I know because I know in AutoCAD you can take like a square and then extract it to like a cube or something like that. EnRoute's drawing is not quite. It comes from a different perspective, and so it's not really trying to be a 3D modeling or a 3D drawing program. It's mostly just a 2D parts drawing program. So most of what you can do, not that it can't do like three-dimensional style cutting, it can. We just have specific tool paths to do that. So like if you want to do V-groove letters, we have tool paths that allow that to happen. Or if you want to make pyramid letters, we have a tool path that helps you do that with 2D letters. Or if you want to create a cut on a slope, you can, again, it's another tool path that does that. So some of the tool paths do what you might create or draw in another program. So it's more of a 2D-ish style.
Okay, said thank you. That answers my question. So thank you, Aaron, for answering all those. Thank you, everyone, for bringing all those questions. And I think that's about all the time we have for today. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But we want to, again, thank you all for attending today's EnRoute webinar. And we will be having our next webinar will be held next month in April. And that will be on April 13th. And we'll be talking about advanced drilling and different drill patterns. And so we'll send everyone an email with a link to register for that webinar, and we'll send you a link to today's recording as well, so you can review that whenever you'd like. So we'll hope to see you all next month. Thank you so much, Aaron. We'll see you later.
All right, see you guys later.